Hi, everybody, and welcome to Team-Centered Approach for Difficult Behaviors in the Classroom. This is a webinar with Amy Williams. So take a moment and make sure you have your workbook alongside you, either on your favorite device or print it out if you'd like to, so you can take notes and practice throughout this webinar. There will be moments when we'll take a pause, get a drink of water, and then there'll be times when we'll pause and write in your notebook, in your workbook. So it's important that you have that close by. Okay, you ready? Let's go ahead and get started. I'm so excited about this content. I have a lot of belief in it. I have absolutely done this for years and years with schools that I've worked with, and I'm hoping that it could be a tool that you can use too with your team in trying to figure out what's the best way to support children in my classroom. So let's go. So I'm Amy Williams with Amy Williams Academy. I'm a dance movement therapist, expressive arts therapist, and I'm also an educator coach and family coach. I've had decades. You guys, I've been in it in schools for the majority of my career in all sorts of positions. So in my role as a teacher and a teacher coach, the tool that we're going to talk about today will give you some relief, some hope, and some joy, bringing that back into your approach with children when you're feeling like everything is falling apart. I got you. All right. My goal in the work that I do is to help all the important adults in the lives of children show up as the best person possible. So with that in mind, let's dive in. Okay, I'd like for you to pause for just a second and think about, what is it that you want from this webinar? What are you interested to get? What kind of intention would you like to set for this? Do you have time set aside to be able to eliminate as many distractions as possible so that you can really focus up on this work? So with that in mind, feel free to pause and write in your workbook, what is it that you want in the first place, right? So go ahead and pause, and when you're ready, just hit play again, and I'll be right here. Okay, so we're back. You've got your intention, you know what you want, you know what you're looking for. Here's kind of the rhythm of what we'll talk about today. So our agenda is this. We'll have some time to think about a particular child that you have in your classroom right now, or maybe have had in the past, or anticipate having in the future. But ideally, we'll think about a child that we're working with right now, right? So think about a child that is that's giving you pause, that you're feeling stuck, you're not sure exactly what to do. Okay, we'll do that first. Then we'll talk about, what do you do now? What kind of processes do you have in place to figure out what's happening with this child, adjust the environment, adjust your own expectations, adjust your own approach, teach skills to children who might be lagging skills. So we'll do a little bit of that first. And then, we'll turn our attention to the idea of lagging skills and unmet needs. Hello, Ross Green, right? So we'll talk some about that. Then we're going to go into the tool itself, child study or student study. I wish I made this up, but I didn't. I want to give a huge shout out to NCMPS, National Center for Montessori in the Public Sector, for creating this tool. I've taken the tool and used it a little bit. Feel free to take what you have and edit it to fit your program and your community and how you and your colleagues work. Feel free to do that, absolutely. Then we'll go into a little bit about, how do you communicate with families that something is happening in the classroom that's not quite working, or there are lagging skills, or here's what you're trying. How do you document what's happening? So one, you can communicate with families, and two, so that you can watch for patterns. Oftentimes when we take some data and actually put it down on paper, we can see, oh, this is a pattern happening at this time of day or around this kind of circumstance. So a behavior incident is kind of a very formal, stuffy word for what's happening day to day to day. So we'll talk about an option for that. If you don't have an option, if you don't have a process in place, we'll talk about one that you could take a look at and use, borrow, edit to make it fit what you do in your program, right? Then we'll have some time for final thoughts, setting some goals, setting an intention for what you want to put into place based on what you've learned today, all right? So here's our first writing prompt, everybody. So get ready. Okay. Think about a child that you've had in your classroom, past or present, that presented you with behavior that you weren't sure with, it stumped you. You've had years of experience or maybe weeks of experience, and you're not sure what to do. You've tried all sorts of things, and nothing seems to be working to help support this child. You're feeling mystified and you're stuck. So we've all had those times together. I'm thinking about particular children in my mind again and again and again that come back to me, and I can tell you what happened, what I tried, what worked, what didn't work, and how I reached out to my colleagues to take a breath and to ask for help, right? Okay, so pause right now and write down as much as you remember about that child. What were the strengths? What were the struggles? What was the behavior that had the greatest impact on your community? What did you try? What did you not try yet? Right? What was the vibe in your classroom culture, in your classroom community at that moment? Right? Who were you working with? Those kinds of details that can help us get in the mindset of that particular child in that particular moment in time. So find your pause button, hit pause, do that thing, and come on back when you're ready. Okay, now we're back. You've got your head down. You're ready. You've got an idea in mind. We're going to do another writing prompt. There are several, right? But this is the second one. Promise. We're going to get into lots of content shortly. But this is important. Who are your people? Who are the people that you go to for ideas or a new perspective? Right? Is it your co-teacher? Is it your assistant teacher? Is it your head teacher? Is it your head of school, your director? Is it your best friend? Is it a teacher that you've known for decades, a mentor, right? Who are your people right now that you could go to for fresh ideas, who can understand what it is that you are experiencing, have some ideas and kind of dig your philosophy, and can offer a fresh perspective? So take a moment right now and write that person's name down, right? Ideally, if that person is still around and you're able to connect with them, uh, write them a letter, write them a note, send them a message somehow to let them know, hey, you're my person. And you're the person I'm going to go to when I'm not sure what to do, right? Let them know. It's helpful. And it feels really good to be that person in the life of someone else. Okay, so pause right now, write down that person's name, write down those people's names. Brene Brown talked about the idea of a square squad. Your people who you can depend on, that you can trust, that you could go to for cheerleading, for help, for assistance, for a listening ear, right? Who would you put on your square squad, right? Okay, pause and come on back when you're ready. Okay, now we're back. Okay, so you have all that info, so we're gonna put that on the side for a second, and we're gonna go into some data, right? Some statistics that will probably hurt your heart a little bit and maybe not surprise you, or maybe surprise you, right? So this info is based on some research from the 0 to 3 and the National Black Child Development Institute. They did some research, taking a look at the statistics of expulsion rates by age, right? And more. What are the factors that come into play, and what can they look at to see patterns? So here's what the findings had. By the way, feel free, if you want the link to this research, email me directly at amywilliamsacademy@gmail.com and let me know, and I can send you the link to that, and you could read the long, in-depth research that they did. Deep respect for this organization. Okay, so here's what this research found. So research by the Foundation for Child Development indicates that 3 and 4-year-old children are being expelled from preschool at a rate higher than school children in grades K through 12 combined. Now just let that sit a moment. I know we've all been in the position, some of us maybe more than others, where there's a child in your program, in your preschool program, and you've said to yourself, I'm not able to serve this child. We're not able to serve this child. What this child needs, we're not able to give. And you've had that conversation with families, and it may start a little something like, we're not a fit. It's not a fit. Let's find a program that's a better fit for this child, right? Maybe you've had that conversation with families, and maybe you're in a program who has dedicated and committed to not having those conversations, to doing all that is necessary to help support every single child, right? Sometimes it's harder than others, right? So consider that as we move forward of what the expulsion rate looks like. Hopefully, these statistics will change the more that we as professionals and educators learn and grow how to support children with all different kinds of needs and different kinds of lagging skills and different kinds of strengths, right? Okay, so here's some more. So this research also goes on to indicate that preschool, pre-K, preschool, kindergarten expulsion rate was 3.2 times higher than the expulsion rates for those K through 12 students. So, wow, that's a lot. Here's some more. All right, 4-year-olds. What's up with 4-year-olds? But 4-year-olds were expelled at a 50% higher rate than 3-year-olds. So think about, okay, what do you know about child development? What happens between a child being 3 and a child being 4? What's happening in their body and in their brain? What shifts are happening? What kinds of supports do we have in place that may not be serving these children? So something to think about, right? Next, this research also showed that boys were expelled at a rate of over 4.5 times that of girls. So those of you who've worked with children for any amount of time can maybe imagine what that might look like, right? Is there more physicality? Is there less physicality? Is it relationship building? Is it development of language, right? So as we're looking at the differences between boys and girls, or children who present as boys and girls, let's remember that, right? And be mindful of, where does our eye go when there's something happening in the classroom? Do we tend to look at a particular child, right? That's a hard one to self-reflect and be mindful of, right? Are you looking at that kid, a particular child, when things get really noisy or things feel really chaotic? Do you look at 1 or 2 or 3 particular children, thinking to yourself, yep, Abby's doing something over there, Craig's doing something over there, oh, Ivan's doing something over there, right? We have these biases and prejudices that, without our honest and continuous self-reflection, we're going to fall into the beliefs that aren't necessarily true. So over the next couple of weeks, set yourself a reminder to do that. Notice, who is it that you look at more often, right? It may be helpful to ask one of your people, one of your colleagues in your classroom, a classroom teaching partner, and ask them to notice. And you could do the same thing for them and just get some data. Who are you turning to? Whose name do you call out more often than others, right? And when I say call out their name, I'm saying when you call out their name to stop doing something or come stand by me, right? So important to do that self-reflection. So if you need to pause and put a note to yourself to do that thing, I really highly recommend it. Okay, moving on. This research also showed that Black children attending state-funded pre-K were approximately 2 times as likely to be expelled as Latino and white children, and 5 times as likely to be expelled as Asian American children. Now, we have some new programs in place in the state here in Oregon and nationwide and globally around the world to address this. So many people in the field of education are aware of this and are putting processes in place to address this issue and to address this inequity and this disparity in service for children. So my hope is that these statistics are going to shift and change over the next year to 3 years, right? Okay, so with all that in mind, When I first read those statistics and read the research, it gave my heart pause, and I just had to pause myself. So I want to extend that invitation to you too. So I've put in this slide every now and then to remind all of us to pause, take a deep breath. It's a great time to pause and go to the bathroom or go get some water, come back, because it's an indicator that we're going to shift topics just a little bit. So we'll take a pause here, deep breath, and carry on. All right. So what might be some factors that can lead to what we learned in that particular research and what we see and when we struggle in the classroom? What kind of things lead to that? Well, one, tired. We're just tired, right? I don't think anyone can doubt the amount of work that it takes, right? And I'm preaching to the choir. I know you know this. And so we'll carry on with that. Yes, we're tired, right? One, often there are higher student to teacher ratios. Two, there are longer days. Many families need extended care. They need care from the early morning through the school day, through the afternoon. So think about children who are there when the doors of your program open and are the last ones to leave at the end of your day. Sometimes, not always, but sometimes those are children who have higher struggles and greater needs. So something to notice in your program. Have you seen that to be true or not, right? And in addition, another factor alongside many factors is a lot of job stressors, right? It's been a few years since the pandemic. However, we've learned some things and we've kept some processes in place that maybe didn't exist before. The amount of cleaning that we do, the depth of cleaning that we do, the stressors of keeping records and communicating more in depth, the additional training that's necessary, which is a good thing, but it can add stress. In addition to, think about the number of children that you've had in your program, in your classroom, the number of children who have had higher needs, right? So here I am in 2024, and over the past, I think maybe 5-6 years, I hear more and more and more from school leaders and from teachers that there are more children with greater needs in their program. I'm hearing more and more from school leaders and educators that families are in higher need, right? In higher need for resources, in higher need of family education, maybe some support and resources around how to show up as an important adult in the life of their child. So I'm hearing more and more of that. So you're not alone. And we know that adds to more stress and more of feeling tired, just tired. So with that in mind, what are you committed to do right now, right? Think about what is it that you do to check those stressors and what stressors are necessary and what stressors are not necessary. What can you eliminate from your list of tasks to do? Where can you work smarter, more efficiently? And really importantly, where can you reach out and collaborate and partner with others so you're not carrying the bulk of that load, right? What are you committed to do in that area? And also, what are you committed to do to give yourself some more compassion? Be friendly with mistakes, right? Know that, okay, I deserve self-care. So what am I going to do for self-care? Right? And we all know that self-care is great. We know what to do: drink more water, exercise, take your long bubble bath, go on a hike, meet your friends, eat really good food. We know all that. Yes. And let's not forget that first we have to believe that we are worthy of that. We believe that it is necessary, and we have compassion for ourselves to actually make the time to do what we know cares for ourselves, right? So if you need to pause right now and write down that, what are you committed to do? Now's the time to do that. Okay, now we're back. We're going to shift into the different types of behaviors that you might see in your classroom. Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about language. So I've done some adjusting and some editing over the years about how I describe different kinds of behaviors, right? So maybe you've heard positive behaviors, welcome behaviors, good behaviors, right? And you probably all know what I think about good and good job, right? But we'll get to that maybe at another time. Okay. So we have words like positive and welcome behaviors to describe the ones that we like, the ones that we would love to see more of. They please us. They're a joy for you. More of that, please. Like maybe helping another friend, or patiently waiting when it's time to move from indoors to outdoors, or putting the work away when they're finished with it, or finding joy and laughter in the classroom. We want to see more of that. We can probably make a long list of those behaviors, right? And then there are other behaviors that are not so welcome. We might have used words like negative behaviors, naughty behaviors, all the words that we use to describe the behaviors that we would like not to see in the classroom. But we do, because we're human and because children are human too. Okay, so I invite you to think about, are they bothersome? Probably. Who do they bother? Is it a bother to the child themselves, to the community, to you, right? We show up as humans in the relationship, right? So we're going to have a response to behaviors that happen in our classroom, whether we're feeling joy or happiness or welcoming to those behaviors. And we also might feel annoyance or even anger or irritation at some behaviors. For some reason, it's a problem. Those behaviors cause some sort of problem in the community. Those behaviors are typically something like pushing or ignoring or hitting or biting, or knowing what they're supposed to do and just not doing it, right? There are lots of different types of behaviors that would fall into this category. So it's helpful to know what you consider to be positive behaviors and what you consider to be bothersome behaviors, right? So behaviors that we give emotional attention to are going to continue, right? So we'll just pause and let that settle there for a second, right? So think about the behaviors that you want to see more of. If you've paused this to write down a list of positive behaviors and bothersome behaviors, if you haven't done that yet, do that right now, okay? And come on back. But when you think about, okay, how do I give positive or emotional attention and connection to those positive behaviors, right? So often we might miss them because we're giving so much emotional attention to the behaviors that are bothersome. Of course, if it's a safety thing, absolutely, we've got to give that attention, right? If it's bothersome behavior, what type of emotional attention do you give to that, right? Do I give emotional attention to the behaviors that I want to see, right? And that's there's a difference between evaluative and descriptive praise, right? And again, I feel like I'm going on a rabbit trail here. I hadn't planned on talking about this, but I'm going to add it here. So the difference between those are evaluative praise sounds like, oh, good job, or oh, I love that, or that's so beautiful, right? We're putting our own evaluation on whatever it is that the child's doing. I love that you're such a kind friend. Sounds good, but it's evaluative, right? So how can we shift and give that emotional attention in a way that is descriptive so that the child can construct their own inner voice and not grow dependent on the opinions of others in when they're thinking about, as they get older, they're thinking about their behavior and the impact it has on others, right? That internal voice is something that develops from very early on, and then it becomes internalized and they're able to access that as when they reach that second plane and beyond, like first grade, second grade, and beyond. That internalized voice that can tell them about themselves and about their own behavior. I am a good friend. I can be kind. Oh, that felt really good. I'm proud of myself, right? So when we use words that are descriptive, we give children the words that they can, we give them the space to create, okay, yeah, that does feel good. Yeah, I did work hard on that. I did work a long time. Yeah, I did keep my hands to myself. while we waited in line, right? So there's my rabbit trail. Now I'm back. So when we think about those behaviors that you want to see, remember that list you just made, how often do you give emotional attention to, right? Now, I'm not talking about the rah-rah jazz hands emotional attention, like, oh my God, way to go, you're the best, right? There's a time and a place maybe for that. But in reinforcing the behaviors that we want to see, those welcome behaviors, those positive behaviors, here's what we can do, right? So yes, when you see those positive behaviors, notice them, but you don't have to make a giant big deal with them. Here is a little tool for you going forward that will encourage more of that positive behavior, right? And can set you up in your relationship with the child to address the bothersome behavior, okay? And here it is. It's connection during neutral times. So thank you, big thank you to Joanne Nordling and her book, Caring Discipline. I learned this from that work, and I'm telling you, I used it every day since I learned it. And I tell as many educators globally about this technique. So it goes a little something like this. It's a brief, often nonverbal connection with children, with a child during neutral times. So not during the times when things are positive and they're doing the behaviors that you want to see more of, okay? And they're not doing the things that are bothersome and are kind of annoying and irritating, but it's in those moments of neutral, those neutral times when maybe they've finished with their work and they're putting it on the shelf and they're deciding what to do next, neutral time. They're just entering into the classroom and haven't really engaged with anything yet, neutral time. They're walking across the room and we happen to make eye contact with them, neutral time. They finished reading a book and they close it. And there's that deep breath that you've seen, right? Neutral time. Whenever they enter into our atmosphere or they cross in our field of vision, those often are neutral times. Now, the power of this is when we can make a connection during those times, right? We're not interested in interrupting their concentration or interrupting their work, right? Because those are positive behaviors. We want to see more of those, yes? Okay, but those neutral times, when we make that eye contact when they're walking across the room, or we happen to see each other across the room at a gathering, right? That's the time when you make a brief nonverbal connection. And it can look like this. Here's a universal, a smile. And that brief nonverbal tool, brief nonverbal message says, I see you, I recognize you, and I'm happy about that. And then you carry on. It might be a smile, it might be an eyebrow raise, it might be a wink, right? It's important to realize and to learn what is the way, what is the method that children receive the best, right? Here's a story. I tend to be a winker. This is my connection at neutral times. I just do. I'm a winker. And get this. So there was one little boy in our school. I'll call him Calvin. And he had some struggles, so we increased the number of times that we connected during neutral times, right? So we did a child study, and we decided connection at neutral times is a tool we're going to use. We're going to turn up the volume, turn up the frequency in how often the adults in his experience at school, we're going to connect at neutral times. So we actually took data. How often do we do that now? It wasn't a lot. And so we decided, okay, everybody is going to connect at neutral times 3 to 5 times before lunch. Got it? Okay. It was something concrete that we could count, and we could see if that approach, if that technique made any shift in behavior. That was one thing that we could do. So we did that. So every morning, I was the school counselor at that point. I would make my way down to that classroom, and without going in or interrupting, wait until I had eye contact with him and give a wink, right? Give a wink every day, right? I was connecting at neutral times And I was a winker. Other people were smilers. Other people were eyebrow raisers. Sometimes it might be this or like this, a wave, some sort of brief nonverbal connection. Okay, that went on for several years. And there was one day that I came by his classroom, paused, waiting for that moment of eye contact. And I was scanning the room and I turned to see him and he winked at me first. You guys, did my heart like grow 1,000 times? Yes, I got a little misty, actually. So I had to carry on kind of quickly, right? So children will learn that they could do that too. So they know what it feels like to have someone connect with them and send the message of, I see you and I'm happy about that, right? Now, fast forward some months and this child moves on to our elementary program. He's going into first grade, and you know what happens during that time. There's the adults tend to lose a lot of credit, and they turn to their peers, which is what they're supposed to do. That's the work of an elementary child, of a second plane child. So he moved into that. His classroom was right across from my office, right? So I thought, yay, I'm so excited that he's moving into first grade. I'm feeling proud and I'm feeling all these things, right? Okay, and I see him in the hallway, and here I go. Wink, pause. I mean, it was an uncomfortably long pause. And he said to me, Miss Amy, don't wink at me. He was clearly letting me know that he was not a kid anymore. He wasn't a baby anymore. He was growing up, right? I was like, okay, roger that. I said, okay, yeah, thanks. And then later, we figured out what we could do, and it turned from this to this. A subtle shift, a subtle change, but some sort of brief nonverbal message to him that continued that I see you. I'm happy about that. I'm glad you're here. So know that whatever technique you use to connect at neutral times may shift and evolve. It may be that some children, you will see a nonverbal response to our connection at neutral times that would indicate, yeah, that felt good, or no, that's weird, don't like it, stop doing that, right? Yeah, this also goes for your colleagues too. Connection at neutral times with each other is also a way to deepen that relationship and foster that connection and send messages that I'm glad you're here, right? And I don't recommend you winking to all of your colleagues. So find a way that feels right, that feels good. Maybe talk to your colleagues about what would feel good to them, right? It's another way that we can address the topic and the issue around consent, right? So again, that's another conversation too. So that's all I want to say about connection during neutral times, or is it? It might be more. Okay, so let's take a pause here. I'm just gonna get a quick drink of water and we'll carry on. Okay. So Ross Greene, here he is. I've told audiences all around the world that I have a professional crush on Ross Greene, and I do, because a lot of wisdom I've gained from the work that he shares. In particular, what I want to talk about today is the idea around unmet needs and lagging skills, right? So Ross Greene is an author and a child psychologist, right? So he says, children do well when they can. Okay, just pause for a second and think about that. If we could shift our perspective about behavior and notice, okay, when children are doing well, it's because they can. They've got the resources that they need, they've got the tools that they need, their needs are met, right? And then when they're, not doing well, what is it that they're lacking? What need is not being met? What skill do they not have yet to show up in the way that is important and helpful and kind and respectful in your community? So he goes on to say, when children can't do well, it's because they may be delayed in the development of crucial cognitive skills, lagging skills. What can we teach into? And we've probably experienced and tried all the different ways that we can teach tools, teach techniques. We know how to tell a story or have something that some philosophies call a grace and courtesy, which is a how to do things, how to ask a friend to play, how to stop when someone says stop, how to wait your turn, how to walk around someone's rug when they're working, how to wait for something to be back on the shelf, for it to be available. We've done all of those kinds of skill building, teaching moments. So we know what that is, right? So around the particular skills that the child that you have in mind from when we talked a little while ago, what skill are they missing and how can I teach into that, right? Well, there's some things to consider, right? One, to remember that challenging kids or kids with challenging behavior are not always challenging. They're challenging only when our expectations that we place on them outstrip their skills. Now, is it important for us to have expectations? 100%, absolutely. When we have an expectation and children are struggling to meet those expectations, then we can, as their educator, as their teacher, as their important adult, we can pause and go, okay, is that an expectation that they can meet? Do they have the skills to meet that? Well, when we're thinking about skills, we can't just think about them in isolation, right? Let's take a look at them connected to their needs, right? So if you've taken a psychology class or child development class, you've probably heard about Abraham Maslow and the hierarchy of needs, right? Here's one graphic that shows it. Oftentimes you'll see the hierarchy of needs in sort of a pyramid shape, right? And in it, Maslow and his team did lots of research, collected lots of data to test their hypothesis and create their thesis of what are basic human needs. And this is kind of what they came up with, right? So as humans, we have needs that are physical, right? Physiological. We need water, we need warmth, we need food, we need rest. That's a basic human need that all humans have, right? Next, there's a need for safety, another need that humans require, right? So the need for emotional and intellectual security. Am I emotionally safe? Am I physically safe? Which is sort of connected to the physiological need, right? But you can see how they kind of come together. Okay, so safety. Am I safe? Next is the sense of the need for love and a sense of belonging. Do I have friends? Do I have people who are happy about that I'm here? Do I feel like I'm connected to other humans, other people? Do I belong here? Is this my classroom? How do I know it's my classroom? It's because my name's on the cubby. My name's on the snack tag. That's where I hang my coat. That is my favorite teacher. There's my best friend. This is my classroom. So we all do so many things already to help children get these needs met: physiological, safety, and a sense of love and belonging, right? So carrying on, what's another human need? The next one that Maslow and his team described was the need for respect and status and recognition, right? Do I have skills that I can contribute to my community, right? I'm the best line leader, and so I get to be the line leader. I can make a beautiful flower arrangement for my friend, so I'm going to do that. I can ask my friend for a hug when they're feeling sad. That's my skill. I've got that skill. And people notice. It has an impact on my community, right? So that and many other ways are ways that we can see children getting that need met, or places where we can help children get that need met. Okay, next, Maslow said, okay, once you've got all those needs met, you can achieve your full potential, right? Self-actualization is what he called it. Now, this is a very, very, very brief, high-level like overview and description of this hierarchy of needs. There's much more that you can read about it for sure. Okay, so, but in a nutshell, this is kind of the gist of it. When I get all my needs met, according to Maslow and his team, I am self-actualized. I can achieve my full potential, right? I'm free to be the fullest expression of myself and who I'm meant to be, right? Okay, so thanks, Abraham Maslow. And I want us to take a moment and give some credit where credit is due. I don't know about you, but when I learned about this, I didn't hear anything about his time that he spent with the Blackfoot Nation. Sure enough, there was time spent with that community in, testing his hypothesis, doing observation in their community, all that a researcher, that a scientist would do, right? But there wasn't any credit given because the work and the time that he spent with the Blackfoot Nation had a huge influence on this final, what it is that you see here. Now, there was a little bit of a different perspective that this community took about the hierarchy of needs and what the needs of humanity are, right? They were already talking about that. They already had a recognition that, yes, there are basic human needs that humans have. However, they look at it in a different way. So if you take a look at it from that perspective, it can look more like a circle instead of a triangle, with the self, with the individual being up on top, right? So this is more of our connection as a community, how we assist and support each other to get each other's needs met. Yes, I can do it myself. And when I need help, I can reach to others in my community. All right, so check it out. You'll see that many of the needs that were on the pyramid just earlier are here also in the circle. So at the bottom, you see physiological needs. Yep. Next, the need for safety. Yep. The need for love and belonging. Yep. The need for esteem, respect, and recognition. Yes. I'm particularly happy that this particular way to look at it includes aesthetics, music, and art as a basic human need. I'm 100% behind that, right? Next comes self-actualization. I can be the fullest expression of myself when I have these needs met, but it doesn't end there. When I can be the best expression, the fullest expression of myself, I can, along with others who have reached that, can rise up with my community. So our community becomes the fullest expression of itself. Once that happens, that leads to a service to the living world, in turn supports a thriving ecosystem, which in turn helps get those physiological needs met of water, warmth, rest, food. So you see that it's all connected. It's a different way to look at it, huh? Okay. So take a deep breath. I encourage you, if you want to pause now and go take a break and come on back, now is a really good time to do it, because we're going to actually do a child study or a student study. Okay. So go away, come back if you need to, and we'll be right here. Okay, so here are the elements of a child study. Goes a little something like this. So we're going to do this today. So first, we're going to look at a case study. What does that look like? What is the information that you gather when you are looking at doing a child study or a student study, right? Then we're going to get ready to write, putting our ideas and our thoughts down of what we know here and now, what we've tried, what worked, what didn't work, what we know about this particular child, what are the strengths, what are the biggest struggles, right? Next, there's a time in the child study process to ask clarifying questions. So you've gathered all of your important people, all of your colleagues, right? All of the people that you respect and that understand what it is that you're doing, what your work is about, right? And they are there to support you. And as the presenting teachers, the presenting guide, as the presenting head teacher, whoever is presenting this particular case study on a child is there to be open and ready to receive, right? It's a little shift in vibe because it may be that the presenting teacher who wants to present about a particular child may feel the need to participate and come up with more ideas. Okay, so full permission for your presenting teacher to take a beat and receive the help and the assistance from other people. Oftentimes, when a presenting teacher or presenting guide wants to present a student study or a child study, they've been racking their brain for months and months for the longest time. So they've already done a lot of this work. So this is an opportunity for courage and vulnerability to show up, and the courage to step back and receive the assistance and the help of your community, right? Okay. So in this child study, you look at it, you're getting ready to write, then there's an opportunity for clarifying questions, right? So like, how old is this child again? Or what are the resources from home? Or whatever kind of clarifying questions that might be that might be posed by the larger group, right? Okay. Next, after that, there will be time to brainstorm or list all the ideas that are coming to our mind, okay? And again, huge shout out to NCMPS for developing this tool. Okay, so here's the preparation. There's stuff to do before the gathering of the minds, whatever you want to call it. Gathering of the minds feels really good to me. Okay, so before that happens, you're going to let families know what you're doing. So it could be that you say, hey, I took this webinar, or we learned a new tool, or hey, this is what our school does, or this is what our program does, right? But you've already probably had, hopefully, have had conversations with the family about the behavior that is bringing you to the point that you want to do a child study, right? So hopefully, ideally, you've been talking with families already, right? Because sometimes when a behavior shows up that you'd like to address and you're talking with families about it, you can figure out what is the lagging skill, what's the unmet need. You help with that skill, you help get that need met, and the difficult, hard, bothersome behavior dissipates, right? So these conversations have probably already been happening. But before you do a child study, a student study, you let them know that you're doing that. And you'll let them know what you came up with, right? You absolutely let them know about confidentiality. You can let them know that you won't use their child's name, or if it's a small program, however it is that you want to communicate with your families about protecting the dignity of the child and the family, and that you're connecting with people to come up with more ideas to support their child to be successful and happy and joyful, right? Okay. So inform the families. I just want to underline that. Next, you're going to set the stage. Okay, so this is the fun part. This is the spa day for the presenting teacher, right? They've been doing all this. They've been putting all kinds of ideas, and they're just like, I don't know what to do anymore. So give them a break, right? Make it a spa day for them, right? Like, you don't necessarily have to have a massage chair available, but what's their favorite coffee? What's their favorite beverage? Have that there for them. Is there a beautiful tapestry or a placemat that you can put at their table, right? Do they get the best seat in the room? You better believe it. I've been in so many staff rooms, and you know that chair, that's the best one, right? So the presenting teacher gets to have that chair, okay? So it might be that you have some fruit available for them, or a snack, or chocolate, right? It's a time for them to feel like, okay, I can rest easy in the arms of my professional friends who are going to carry me for a little bit, right? A moment of rest, a moment of respect of all the work that they've already put into it, right? So think about, for you and your program, like, what's the culture at your place? What's the vibe? What would it look like, right? One school that I worked with, I'm thinking of a very particular school, and we had this colorful tapestry that was long and silky. It was beautiful, and we only used it during child study. It was like, oh, this is for you. I got their Starbucks order. We had really good chocolate available, and whatever their favorite fruit was or favorite snack, we had that there. There was one teacher whose favorite snack was Doritos. So did I have a bag of Doritos there for her? You bet it. You better believe it. Okay, so it's a spa day for the presenting teacher. Before the gathering in the minds, you want to collect data. Now, is this something that the presenting guide does? Yes. To get ready, because you want your team to have as much information as possible to make an informed to give informed ideas, right? So it might be that the teaching team who works most closely with this child begins to document with more detail what it is that you notice. Are there patterns that you're seeing throughout the day or throughout the course of a week? Or do you see more of this behavior when if it's a two-parent household, when somebody is out of town, or is there a big move or a baby that's been born, right? So you're collecting all this data to be able to answer questions during the child study, the student study itself. Okay. So there's data collection. In the workbook that you have, you see the tool that you can use to prepare, and it's the student summary, right? And that's where you can put all your data together. Cool. You want all that completed so that you can share the student summary with your people beforehand, right? It can be really helpful for your team, your minds that you gather, to have this information ahead of time so they can start thinking, so they can go ahead and start going, oh, I wonder about this. Oh, I have a question about, right? So their brains and the wheels are already starting to turn. So all that happens before the gathering of the minds. Now, during the gathering of the minds, you're going to share with the team, the student study. You're going to share with the team how it goes, like what is a student study, right? Usually the first time you do a student study, it'll take longer than after you do a few student studies. It takes about 45 minutes once you get really, good at it. Not good, well practiced, well rehearsed, right? But the first time it might be a little clunky, and then you'll get into the rhythm of it, and it will go as smooth as silk going forward. Okay, so during the gathering of the minds, you've already shared this with the team. They know what to expect. Oh, don't forget, you're going to set a timekeeper, somebody that's going to help keep you on time. And you're wondering, okay, why? Because each of the sections, each of the parts of the student study has a time limit, right? How often have we been in a meeting or in a conversation with somebody, and we're telling about this child or telling about our struggle, and it goes on and on and on and on and on. And then by the time you end that conversation, you realize, I still don't have any ideas, right? So this process is really useful because it helps keep us focused, right? And the rabbit trails, the side conversations that may happen, the timekeeper can help us stay on track and stay focused. So having a timekeeper, and of your community, you probably are thinking about, I know the best person to be timekeeper, right? So you've got a timekeeper, but you also want to set somebody to be the facilitator, right? So the facilitator is not the presenting guide. The presenting guide is not the timekeeper. Remember, spa day. So who of your community be a timekeeper, and who can facilitate it and help move the group along, right? Okay. During this gathering of the minds, when you do all that and you go through the process, there'll be a time to select a strategy, because you'll end up with 30, 40 ideas that maybe you've thought of, maybe you've tried, maybe you haven't, right? But you're going to select, the presenting guide will select one, and alongside the facilitator will set a goal that is a SMART goal. And we'll get more into that later. Specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based, right? So selecting a strategy, and what is the goal, so that you can see evidence of, did that particular strategy work or not work? So you're going to give it some time to work or to not work before you select a different strategy. Okay. All right. So that's during. And here is the after piece. After the gathering of the minds, right? You'll want to track the progress. Did that strategy work or not? Did you see a difference in behavior? Did you see a difference in success, in joy, in what it is that you're looking for? Then you'll want to circle back and maybe adjust the goal Adjust the strategy as necessary. And of course, we don't want to forget circling back and sharing successes. Celebrate the successes. So maybe the next time your group meets, the person who had a student study before can give an update. Hey, we increased the times that we connected at neutral times by 80%. The bothersome behavior has dissipated. We're all rainbows and unicorns now, right? Okay. So yeah, celebrating success and giving updates is so helpful. So helpful. Okay, deep breath. Whew. Okay, so here is how it goes. We're going to go through the steps one by one, what they look like and how long it takes. And then we'll do it again. And I encourage you, you'll get so much from this if you can pause this and actually do it with your people, right? Gather, maybe it's just a few people at a time, or perhaps you play this webinar again at that section to help, take you through the process, right? That's a possibility. So anyway, here's how it goes. So here's how it goes. Number one, what's going on with the child? What's going on with the student? That's your student summary. So the presenting guide has filled that out. Copies have been shared. People have been thinking about it already before you come to your meeting, your gathering, right? And you take 5 minutes for the presenting guide to share what's going on, right? What is the main curiosity? And the main curiosity is another way of saying, like, what's the biggest problem? What's causing the greatest impact to success and happiness and joy in the classroom? What's the main thing? What are the pertinent details? And it might be, does the child have an IFSP, or if it's an elementary student, an IEP? Do they have outside services that are helping, right? Has there been a visit to a pediatrician or a developmental pediatrician? Is there an evaluation necessary or recommended? Where are you with that? What's happening in the family? Are there extenuating circumstances or great stresses at home that need to be taken into consideration, right? The age of the child. Are there siblings? Does their family have extended family or assistance to help, right? All the pertinent details, right? Next, what has been tried? So during this student summary sharing, in this 5-minute chunk, the presenting guide is sharing the main curiosity, the pertinent details, and also what has been tried. We tried this, didn't work. We tried this, didn't work. Tried this, it kind of worked, but not really. So you're sharing what you've already done, right? Next, what are other important details to share, right? And you know what those are. They will be different for every student summary presentation, right? During this time, the group just listens and takes notes. They don't ask any questions or interrupt. They just let the presenting guide, the presenting teacher just flow, right? That can be really hard to do, especially if you are an activator or you're an idea generator and you come to the meeting with like, okay, I got this will work. I can't wait to tell you, and I just want you to do it. Okay, we're going to slow the roll. And during this 5-minute introduction, the presenting guide will speak without being interrupted. It's such a respectful thing and kind thing to do, right? So the group listens and takes notes. Then, and this is when your timekeeper keeps everybody on, so they know, okay, this is 5 minutes. They might give everybody okay, we've got 1 more minute, and then carry on. Here's the next section that goes for 5 minutes, okay? And this is where we're identifying the concern. What's the biggest impact, right? So the facilitator is managing clarifying questions from the team, right? So are there clarifying questions? Oh, you want to know if there's a sibling? Oh, is there a new baby? Oh, okay, right. Is there an IFSP? Oh, yeah. So those kinds of clarifying questions are managed by the facilitator, right? Not necessarily the presenting teacher, okay? Because remember, spa day, they're not leading anything. Okay, next, the presenting teacher answers the questions as directly as possible. And that goes for 5 minutes. Now the next part goes for 10, right? So this is where you're defining the problem. So the facilitator helps facilitate this conversation, keeps people on track, right? Brings people back if they start to go into problem-solving mode, they bring them back, right? So the facilitator supports this open discussion in which the team offers some suggestions and analysis about the cause of the child's problem areas. So hello, Ross Green. Hello, Maslow. Hello, Blackfoot Nation. What might be some unmet needs? What might be some lagging skills? So this is where they're suggesting and maybe having some analysis about what might be unmet needs, what might be lagging skills, etc. Okay, not problem solving yet. Right now, we're trying to get at the cause of the child's problem areas. Okay, next, what is the greatest obstacle to success? That's a big question that as a community, as a group, you want to answer during this time of defining the problem, during this 10 minutes. Timekeeper gives everybody about okay, we got about 1 more minute. And then when the 10 minutes is done, ding, it's time, and you move to the next section, which is articulating the goal. So this goes for 10 minutes. Sometimes, if it's a really rich defining the problem section, the articulation of the goal may be shorter, right? So, but you give yourself 10 minutes, and if it takes 7, then hooray, you're going ahead faster. But usually it takes about 10 minutes, right? So this is where the facilitator and the presenting guide come together, and they're creating a goal. What is a SMART goal for reducing this difficulty? How will you know that you've had success? And in creating this goal, you want to get specific, right? You want to have something that's measurable, that's attainable, something that's realistic to be able to achieve in the timetable that you give, right? So it's attainable, and is it relevant to your classroom experience, and time-based. So for example, a SMART goal might sound something like, Abby will bite less than 3 times per day, less than 3 times per day by February 18th. Okay, so you remember I said attainable. So if Abby is biting children 10 times a day, getting to 3 is a big goal. Is it attainable, right? So you want to have something attainable so that you can determine, is the approach that we're doing having an influence? Is it having an impact, right? Then when that goal is met, you create another SMART goal with maybe with a different kind of measurement, right? Abby will bite 1 time per week, right? You'll get to that place. Okay, so specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. This is really helpful, especially this part, well, all the parts, but especially this part to share with families. So perhaps they could try, if they're having the same issue at home, they could try some of the same approaches that you're trying in the classroom at home, and then they have a goal too, and then you could see, is this working at home? Is this working at school? Do we do something different at school and different at home, right? Again, that communication and that informing families piece is really crucial. Okay, so this is number 4. It goes for 10 minutes. Okay, this is a fun part. Well, all of it's fun, but this one especially is fun. Okay, so this is the idea flurry. So it goes for 10 minutes. I gotta tell you, when I've done child study, and as the facilitator, when I'm working with the guide or the presenting teacher to articulate the goal, everybody else is already putting their heads down and they're writing sticky notes fast and furiously. So they're getting started on this already because it's fun. Okay, so at this time, and it goes for 10 minutes, everybody gets, if you're in person, sticky notes about this size or maybe even smaller, whatever works for you, whatever you have, slips of paper. This is really helpful so that the entire team with their chunk of sticky notes, if you're doing it virtually, you've got your chat box to have like a waterfall of ideas, right? But during this idea flurry, it goes for 10 minutes. Big nod to the timekeeper who's helping keep everybody honest with this. The entire team generates as many potential interventions as possible in 5 of this 10 minutes, right? So you've got your sticky notes, you've got your chat box, right? And you invite your participants to write 1 intervention per note. So just 1, that's 1 idea. The second idea goes on the next one. You see how it goes? So it's easy to keep them separate, okay? So you're doing that piece. And then after the 5 minutes goes, timekeeper is on the money here. The team reads their suggestions. So it goes around and each person takes a look at their sticky notepad, or we turn to the chat box, however it is that you're generating and documenting those ideas, and everybody gets to share what their ideas are, right? Just quick and simple, to the point, without lots and lots and lots of detail, right? Kind of high level. So that's the idea flurry. Goes for 10 minutes. We're getting there. We're almost to the end. So this part right here is completing the action plan. So there's a form in your workbook that is, you can take it and edit it as you wish. However, to put your action plan down on paper is really helpful so that you know what it is that you're doing, right? And this goes for 5 minutes. So the facilitator and the presenting teacher are really focused up here during this part. And, you know, everybody else is pause, hanging out, waiting, okay? So the presenting teacher chooses 3 or 5 of the strategies. They choose 3 to 5, or maybe even 2 really solid ones. And the rest, they get to leave with a whole stack of ideas that they could come to if they find the strategy that they choose is not working, right? Okay, so they choose 3 to 5. They agree on indicators of progress. So you're getting back to your SMART goal. How will you know that this approach is working or not, and make an adjustment if not, right? But first you have to decide what it is that you're going to do and decide what are going to be the indicators that progress is happening. Okay, and then set a date to report back. Typically, it's your next staff meeting or your next time that you gather for a student study. That goes for 5 minutes. Okay, deep breath. Okay, now it's time to do one. So take a pause right now, and I'm going to take a pause too, and then we will come back and yeah, continue on. Sound good? Okay, now we're back. Hopefully you've had a little break, and ideally you've gathered some people around, and you're gonna practice together. Okay, so and if you haven't done that, it's okay. You can just go through the motions and pretend like you're a facilitator and pretend like you're presenting guide and timekeeper at the same time, which is really difficult to do. So I recommend gathering a few people just to go through the motions, go through the process yourself in real time. Also, here's the place where you can come back to when you have your team gathered more formally to do the student study together, okay? So let's do one. So number 1, timekeeper, are you ready? Facilitator, are you ready? And I'll be the facilitator, okay? And we're gonna do this in real time. So I'll have here a timer that I'll go for 5 minutes, and I'm gonna try to be facilitator and timekeeper at the same time. So I'm gonna turn my phone back on so I can turn the timer on. So here we go. So presenting teacher, have you filled out the student summary? If you haven't, pause, do that thing, come on back, all right? But we're gonna go for 5 minutes and present the student summary, okay? So for 5 minutes, we're gonna do this. We're gonna, presenting teacher, you get to share main curiosity, pertinent details, what you've tried, what's worked, what didn't work, right? Other important details that you think is important to share. And at this point, the group listens and takes notes. Bonus extra credit if you're doing this for real, and you've set up the space to be a spa day for the presenting guide. Do they have their favorite beverage? Are there snacks? Snacks are helpful and important. Do they have the best chair? Okay, so 5 minutes, and I'm gonna pause and I'll turn off the camera so I won't distract you, and we're gonna go for 5 minutes. You ready? Here we go. Okay, you've got about 1 more minute to finish sharing the curiosities, details, what you've tried, other important details, and you're still listening and taking notes. 1 more minute. Okay, that means we're done with that part. Okay, so deep breath. Let's move on to the next part, shall we? Okay, now this is 5 minutes, and it's time to identify the concerns. So the facilitator, that's me, would manage clarifying questions from the team. Actually, it's not me because I'm not really there. So choose a person in your group to be the facilitator for this section, okay? And you're going to manage clarifying questions from the team. Any more details that you want to know about, something that you're curious about that wasn't shared in the student summary, what are any kind of clarifying questions that you want to ask, okay? Next, the presenting teacher answers them as directly as possible. So I'll play the part of timekeeper. You've got 5 minutes. Ready, set, and go. All right, everybody, you've got about 1 more minute to finish any clarifying questions that you have, and the presenting teacher can answer these questions as directly as possible. So 1 more minute. Okay, 5 minutes. Okay, whoops. Okay, there. That was noisy and annoying, wasn't it? Okay, so you ready for the next part? Let's do it. This one goes for 10 minutes. So this is where we define the problem. So facilitator, whoever you are in the room, now's the time to support open discussion where your team offers those suggestions and analysis around the cause of the child's problem areas. So go back in your notes for the needs, the basic human needs from Maslow's perspective, and as inspired by the Blackfoot Nation's perspective, the circle and the triangle. Take a look at it, and yeah, have a conversation about what you see as the possible cause to the child's area that's an area of difficulty. Okay, so this is also the time when you're going to clarify what those unmet needs are and what are the lagging skills in getting those needs met, right? So it may be that you may have an idea of, okay, it's sense of belonging or feeling unconditional love. So maybe you might think about, I'm getting ahead of myself, but I'm already thinking of like the idea flurry. I always put on my ideas on the first page of my sticky note to connect at neutral times with greater frequency. It's like one that I always put in there. So maybe you're thinking about that. So think about unmet needs, what the lagging skills might be, and then in a minute we can get to how do we want to teach into those lagging skills or help the child get those skills met. Okay, so next in this defining of the problem, because you got 10 full minutes for this, what do you see as the greatest obstacle for this child's success? Great to define. Okay, ready, set, and go for 10. I'm going to turn my camera off, have the timer going, and I'll give you about a 1 minute time reminder when it's time to wrap up this 10 minutes. Okay, so ready, set, go. Okay, everybody, you've got about 1 more minute. 1 more minute before we move to part 4. There it is. That's the timer. Okay, that says this 10 minutes. Okay, give yourself a pause. And so now your brain is really in the causes of what the behavior is instead of jumping to the how do I fix it piece of it, right? So when we can get to the root of the problem and figure out what the child's inner perspective might be and what their need is in that moment, which can change from time to time, right? We can start from a more firm foundation of how to best address that behavior to help get that need met. Yeah. Okay, so that was part 3, defining the problem. Now let's see. Let's go to the next part. This is articulating the goal. This goes for 10 minutes, and sometimes it takes less, but give yourself 10 minutes for this and create a SMART goal for reducing this difficulty, right? So, what would be the indicators of whatever it is, what technique that you've used, what approach that you've used is actually having an impact? How will you know? So, remember, specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. Now, if you've never made a SMART goal before, it might take a little longer to wordsmith this so that it is specific. Get as specific as possible. What can you measure? It's either this or that, right? So eliminate as much as possible the subjective language in a goal that you create, right? So be as objective as possible, right? So something that you can measure because you're going to continue to take data. So think like a researcher, okay? Is it attainable? Is this something that is realistic? Going from 10 bites a day to 0 bites a week in 1 week may not be attainable. Maybe, but that's a tough one. So set your goal in a way that you could feel success, and the child will feel success and feel that growth happening. Okay, so attainable, relevant. How does it impact and how is it important to the rest of your community and the other people that are involved? And then give yourself a time, right? Revisit this in 2 weeks, in 1 week, in a month, whatever. Make it time-based so you can come back to it and say, did we reach this goal or not? Yes or no, okay? So I'll be quiet and actually let you pause this video, set your timer for 10 minutes or less, and then when you're finished with that, come on back and we'll go to the next step, all right? Okay, so you paused and now you're back. Here's the idea flurry, and this will go for 10 minutes. Again, 10 minutes is a long time, but this is the fun part. So timekeeper, get ready. For 5 minutes, we're going to generate as many possible interventions as possible, okay? So you've got your sticky pad, you've got your writing utensil, and you're gonna write an idea on each little sticky note, on each entry into your chat box, on each slip of paper, okay? So you got 5 minutes to go for that. So timekeeper, give us 5 minutes and give us a 1 minute. Hey, you've got 1 minute more to go, and then we'll go to the next part. So feel free to pause this video go for 5 minutes. And when you've gone 5 minutes, hit go again. Ready, set, go. Okay, so you've done as many possible interventions as possible. You've got your stack of sticky notes. Now it's time to share all of those. So this is when the team reads their suggestions. So timekeeper, get ready again. You're going to set your timer for 5 minutes. Going to give a high sign when we've got about 1 more minute, time to wrap up, because you probably will have so many to share. Know that as it comes your turn to share, other people have shared, they might have suggestions that you have in your stack. So if so, just say, I second that one, and then go on to your next idea and your next intervention. Okay. Yeah. So now you're at that part. So go 5 minutes. Ready? So pause and come back when you're done with that. Okay, number 6, we're at the sixth section. This is when it's we'll complete the action plan. What are we going to do? So this goes for 5 minutes. So timekeeper, get ready. Facilitator, get ready to assist us as necessary. And this is when the presenting teacher gets to choose 3 to 5 strategies. Full permission to not worry about if somebody's feelings are going to get hurt if you don't choose their intervention idea. Okay, it might be that their intervention you might try next, right? The first 3 to 5 interventions that you try may not work right away. So give yourself permission to keep your stack of ideas and know that you can come back to that if necessary. Okay. Also, this is kind of an aside, but for everyone involved in a student study, these interventions, this list of interventions that you create over time. So say you do a student study every other week for the school year, or once a month for the school year. Think about how many interventions you're going to have recorded, right? Some schools have thought, wow, wouldn't it be a great idea to create a book, right? If this is your problem area, then here are some ideas. If this is your problem area, here's some more, right? So everybody during a student study is learning, because the presenting teacher is presenting a particular child with a particular difficulty, with individual and specific factors involved, right? So it makes an individual circumstance. However, each of us as teachers, we will probably have a student that's very similar, that has a very similar struggle. So we can go back to those ideas and think, ooh, that's a good one. I think I'm going to try that in my classroom. Oh, I'm going to try that one. Ooh, that didn't work. I'm going to try something else, right? So everybody involved in a student study is in a learning process too. So it's win-win for everybody. Okay, so let's see, you choose the strategies, you agree on the indicators of progress, you create that action plan, which is in your workbook. So you got that there, fill that in. And then what's your date? When are you going to come back and share the progress? It might be your next student study meeting, your next staff meeting, however it is that as a community you decide to do that. That piece is really important to share with the community, because now all of your people are invested and they want to know, hey, how's it going? Is that child biting less? Is that child hitting less? Is that child focused with more intensity? Whatever. People will want to know. So go ahead and set a date that you can commit to yourself and commit to your colleagues that you'll share back an update. Okay. So timekeeper, get ready. Pause this for 5 minutes and come back when you're finished, and we'll wrap up. Okay, we're back. Take a deep breath. So you did it. That was long, right? Know that when you do this more and more, it gets easier and easier. You'll find your rhythm, right? You'll tighten up the timeline, right? So deep breath, everybody. Okay. Now we're shifting gears a little, because now we're going to talk a little bit about how do you communicate with families when the difficult behavior, when a bothersome behavior, when those behaviors show up. How are you already communicating? How do you already keep track of what's happening, what's a struggle, right? So that you can see patterns. right? Is it time of day? Is it a collection of children that come together? Is it a relationship with a particular teacher or particular adult, right? So how do you keep that info? How do you keep track of that data now? How do you communicate with families now, right? So some schools use something called a behavior incident report. And that sounds very formal and intense, right? Call it whatever you want to call it. So here's one, I'd like to share one idea with you that, and a copy of this will be in your workbook that you could use. Feel free to edit to make your own, something that works for your community and your colleagues, right? So here's one idea, right? So we found in the school that I worked with where we developed this, found that it was much easier to have a checklist so that whoever had the interaction with the child could fill it out pretty quickly and as thoroughly as possible. Because get this, we're with children most of our day. So to spend time after the children leave or after our workday is over is a big ask. And we don't want to add more to the list of stressors for our educators, right? So the more simple, the better, right? So check it out. Here's a place to get the information about, the child's initials, to keep confidentiality if necessary, the classroom, who's the staff, who's writing about this, the date and the time, right? There is a space to write a description. What is the behavior? What's happening? Like just the facts, right? So you're going to narrate or sportscast as objectively as possible. So as much as possible, you want to take out all subjectivity, right? That can be tricky. And it's a skill that you can develop over time. Okay, so behavior description. And then what is the problem behavior? Is it inappropriate language? Is it running away, property damage? NFD is not following directions, just short, okay? Physical aggression with intention to hurt, yes or no? That with intention to hurt is in italics because it's important to know, is this boisterous play that ended up with somebody getting hurt and they're crying, right? Was that a behavior that was intended to cause harm to another child, right? And then same thing to be said with verbal aggression. You can't be invited to my birthday party, can be really, ouch. Was that intended to cause harm or to hurt the feelings or the heart of another person? Yes or no, right? So it goes on. You see, so I won't go through every little section here. I do want to highlight the part that says type of behavior. So that comes from inspired by Joanne Nordling's work in her book, Caring Discipline, and the 4 different types of bothersome behaviors. And they fall into categories: not minding, self-indulgent, routine not minding, and aggressive. So if you're curious or interested to know what are the differences of these different types of behaviors, you can go to my website, amywilliamsacademy.com, go to media, and either podcast and listen to me talk in more depth about these different types of behaviors on a variety of podcasts where I've been a guest, or you can watch me talk more specifically about them in appearances on KATU's Afternoon Live. So go there to learn more about the specific types of behaviors and what you can do for each of them, okay? If you decide to use this type of behavior report, okay? Next, possible motivation. Remember, we talked about how important it is to get at what are they trying to get? What is their need that's not being met in that moment, right? Next is what did the teacher do? What did the student do, right? You just check what you see. Activity, what was happening during the time? Was there anybody else involved? And the last part is any kind of admin or school leadership follow-up. So is it applicable or not? Do they have to leave the space to be with another person? Is there contact with the family? Is it necessary for a family meeting, etc.? Right. So take this as one example that you can use, or take a look at what you already use and see, does this still work for us? Yes, keep it, don't change it. And if you'd like to zhuzh it, change it, edit it, make it different and more applicable for your for your community, then take some time and do that thing. So feel free to pause right now and go do that and then come back when you're ready. Okay, so now's the time are there any other thoughts that are bubbling up or that have been inspired by our time together today? So feel free to take a moment and write down what's bubbling in your mind right now. What questions do you have? What other things do you want to reach out into your community, to your people, to talk more thoroughly about in regards to coming together to do a student study, or to figure out how can we decide what do we do to help support this child, and how do we help with their skills that may be lagging. Okay, and some final things to remember. One, remember to focus on what's working well too. It's easy to get mired into what's not working, and then we forget, oh yeah, what is the child's strengths? What do they really love? And how can we tap into that, right? Focus on what's working well. Maybe arrival is going beautifully and dismissal is where everything falls apart. Take a look at what's working in that arrival process. That can we bring something that works here into the difficult time too, right? Okay. Next, remember to be friendly with error, and that's friendly with the error of children, with your colleagues, and also with yourself, because we won't get it right the first time or the second time, right? With every error, with every struggle, with every idea that doesn't work, there comes some point of learning, right? Through the struggle is where we learn. We know that about children. Let's give ourselves that credit as well, right? Remember to adjust the plan as the child grows and matures. What works right now might not work in 6 months or next year. So you got your stack of sticky notes. So you've got some more approaches that you could try as the child grows and matures, as the behavior shifts and evolves, right? Next, remember to believe in the power of the child, right? I'm a firm believer that all of us do the best that we can with what they got. So remember that the child is the same. They're doing the best they can to have the best life possible. So we're walking alongside to believe and remind the child that they're doing the best that they can, and that they can do hard things. They can be kind. They can be respectful. They can be joyful, right? Okay, now time to pause again and write down what is one thing that you plan to do in the coming weeks. Something inspired by our time together today. What is one thing that you plan to do? So for real, I want you to stop and actually write it down. Write down a date that you're going to complete that. Bonus extra credit if you write a SMART goal around it. I'd be so impressed. Okay, so what is it that you plan to do? And who's your person who you're going to tell about it? And maybe they could come back to you and say, hey, Amy, did you do that thing? And you could say, yes, I did. Or you could say, not yet. And then you could try again. That's okay. All right, so what is it that you plan to do? Full on, pause this, write it down right now. Come back when you're ready. Okay, everybody, that's it. You did it. This is the end of the webinar around team-centered approach. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for giving yourself this time and giving yourself permission to learn and try something new. Happy to hear your feedback. How did it go? What was fun about it? What was really hard about it? I'd love to hear. So here are the ways that you can find and follow me on Instagram or Facebook, LinkedIn for sure. My website is amywilliamsacademy.com. Email amywilliamsacademy@gmail.com. And I can't wait to hear how things are going. All right, you got this.